Today on the Eurostep.
The balance has been restored in the conference finals.
We round up the latest news around the league.
And we give you the lowdown on the draft prospect Jaren Jackson Jr. Hi, I'm Oisin Brown and this is the Eurostep on CRC. Today I'm joined by Cillian Loftus.
Yeah.
And Alex Evans.
Super Saiyan Steph is back.
Scary.
Almost as scary as Scary Terry.
At
home.
Obviously, he's trash away.
Yeah,
Speaking of his poor away form.
In Game 3 on Saturday night, Cleveland beat Boston by 30 points, 116 to 86. No Boston player scored 20 points. Meanwhile, LeBron topped the box score for the Cleveland Cavaliers, as he always does. Despite only dropping 27 points, he also added 12 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. However, his brilliant team performance from the Cleveland Cavaliers, George Hill, Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson and Kyle Korver all got 10 points plus. So I'll start with you, Cillian. What did you make of Game 3 in the Quicken Loans?
It's one of those games where, I'm sure you can feel this, where you're watching at 3 a.m, your team's getting absolutely destroyed, so you say, no, I'd rather sleep than watch this. I turned it off midway through the third quarter. I couldn't take it anymore. It was just a terrible performance all around from the Celtics, shooting less than 40% from the field, 27% from three. And when you compare that to the Cavs, who had a better 3-point percentage than field goal percentage, it's tough stuff to watch. All the guys who were struggling up to that point in the series, like J.R. Smith, George Hill, Kyle Korver to an extent, really showed up in Game 3. They had, not a huge amount of points, 11, 13 and 14 respectively. Just the threat they had from beyond the 3-point arc was absolutely deadly. Like you mentioned, no one on the Celtics scored over 20 points. Tatum had 18. But aside from that, you had 10 from Brown, 10 from Monroe, 13 for Scary Terry, and only 7 for kind of maybe the MVP of the playoffs so far for the Celtics, Al Horford. Bad game all around. And I suppose it's a weird way to say it, but all you can do is put your head up and move on to Game 4.
Yeah, I think the colour, they really showed their true colours, both teams. Game 3, when it really matters, LeBron and the Cavs know that this is effectively a winner-go-home situation. No team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the playoffs. The young Celtics just weren't there and have kept up their poor away-from-home record. LeBron James, we said only with 27 points, adding 5 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. But just an incredible game. It's just LeBron James who's been dropping 40 bombs here and there and everywhere. It doesn't seem that good. But when you also mention that he shot 67%, 8 from 12 from the field, 100% 3 for 3 from 3-point range, and another 80% from the free throw line, areas where he's kind of been struggling. It's just fantastic stuff. There was 6 Cavaliers in double digits, which is great play from what we've seen recently, as well as the double digits. Larry Nance Jr. had 8, Jordan Clarkson had 9, and I think it just kind of keeps up this trend. When Cedi Osman plays, the Cavs seem to win. He played 6 minutes and scored 3 points, but he played.
Rookie of the year. You heard it here first.
So that was Game 3, and I'm going to quote our favourite Instagram presence per sources here. He said, whoever wins Game 4 will go on to win the series. And I think he was left maybe biting his lip after that as a Boston fan, as Cleveland won by 9, 111 to 102. Despite Jaylen Brown scoring 25 points for Boston and Scary Terry Rozier getting 16 points, 11 assists. LeBron went off for 44, and it was too much for Boston to take, although they do bring the series back to the TD Garden now for Game 5. You'd have to say Cleveland are in the driving seat now, Alex.
You'd like to think so, but this is the Cavaliers and the Celtics, who it's going to be, I think, the home court advantage is really big. We've seen both teams winning both their games quite comfortably, in their home grounds. The Celtics are just not the same team away from home, as they slipped to a 1-6 record away from home this playoffs. And the Cavs, I think they're going to struggle going back to TD Garden. The Celtics just want to get out of Cleveland, get back to Boston, because they know if they can keep up their perfect home record, then they're going to advance to the series. Stephen A. Smith even admitted that if it goes to Game 7, he doesn't see the Cavs winning Game 7 in Boston, where they've been not only so significant at home, but at home and in Game 7s. It's a rare occurrence that they lose those. But I think they'll be happy to get back home to the TD Bank Garden, that was called?
TD Garden.
It's just TD Garden. TD is a bank, but it isn't called TD Bank Garden.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's useless anyways. The parquet fort. Man, get out of here.
I was going to leave this a bit till later, but I was just going to say how this is, for the Celtics specifically, this whole playoffs has been, a case of home versus away. They're unbeaten at home. They're 1-6 away from home. And I think Ersan Ilyasova put it best. He said, it's the American Airlines Arena, isn't it? Miami Heat Stadium. He said that was empty most of the time. It was only half filled. The TD Garden's different. It's full every single night. Fans screaming for their favourite team. I think that's a massive reason why Celtics are so deadly at home, 9-0, like I mentioned, completely unbeaten at the TD Garden this playoffs. Away from home, I think their struggles come. They don't have Kyrie Irving. They don't have his killer instinct. They don't have, he thrives away from home. He's absolutely brilliant on the road. They've really been missing that. We know people like to say Scary Terry's better than Kyrie Irving. They should trade Kyrie now. They already have a star backup point guard, but come on. Just look at his home-away splits and you'll see he's no star, much as I love him.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair thing. But one thing, these young players, they've got to learn to adjust, and they've got to be able to play away from home. You can't rely on home court for the playoffs throughout your whole career, because it's going to make tough work of things if they can never win a game away from home. They're not going to take care of teams like LeBron has shown in the past he can do with sweeping teams for now. You got to be able to win home and away, because if the support, I don't know, all of a sudden dwindles out of Boston, then what are they going to do? You can't rely on the fans.
That's not
as much as the fans help. You do have to be able to win away from home. It's pretty big, 50-50.
Yeah, that's why Miami are in the playoffs, isn't it?
You have to.
That's why having your. We've won a ring more recently, but anyways, continuing on.
You said Stephen A. Smith even admitted that if this goes to Game 7, it's in Boston's hands. I said that before the series started. So Stephen A. Smith, I think I should be on First Take, giving out to Max Kellerman talking out of my ass. But anyway,
shots.
Where do you guys see the series going from here? A lot of people, we're saying Cavs in 4 starting at the series, and hasn't quite gone that way, but I think Cleveland are still people's favourites despite that. Would you be inclined to agree, Cillian?
Not a chance. Every series this playoffs, it's been the other team who's supposed to win. Like you mentioned, people say Cavs in 4. We went up 2-0. They completely shut their mouths. Then now it's all of a sudden it's Cavs in 6 again.
Then people say, can the Celtics win? And all of a sudden it's 2-2.
No, I think the focus was more on LeBron's photographic memory rather than the Celtics being up 2-0, but that's none of my business. I definitely think the Celtics will pull this out in 7 games specifically. I don't think they're going to lose at home. They've shown how good they are at home. Everyone seems to struggle on the Cavs side when they're playing in Boston. J.R. Smith wasn't the same player. Guys like George Hill, even LeBron, he had a lot of turnovers when he's playing in the TD Garden. And when you get a turnover, the Celtics fans will let you know about it. They're screaming their heads off every time. So I definitely think Celtics in 7. They're going to stay unbeaten at home.
Yeah, I think either way, I think it's Cleveland. But I think Game 5 could be crucial, because if the Celtics go back, we've seen in Games 3 and 4, especially in 4, that rattled almost by the Cavs, and that's losing 2 in a row now, which they haven't done this playoffs. It's the first time they've lost 2 in a row this postseason. If they go back to the TD Garden with their heads down, and they're not playing the same team they were. And these Cavs come in with the way they've played in these past 2 games, with their efficient play, playing as a team, just playing better basketball on both ends of the floor, and they can get out to an early lead. Game 5 in Boston, then we could be looking at Cavs in 6. But I don't think that'll happen. I think the Celtics under Brad Stevens will stay focused, and I think it's hard to go against history, but as we've seen time and time again, the Celtics at home are great in Game 7. LeBron James in Game 7 is just better. I think LeBron will pull this one out in 7 with a historic performance.
See, I think Game 5 is going to be the most crucial in the series. I think whoever wins Game 5 is going to win the series. As much as I admire LeBron, adore him, I don't think he can single-handedly win Game 7 in the TD Garden. However, Game 5, that's the atmosphere is just a tiny bit toned down, although that's still most NBA stadiums couldn't even dream of what they have in Boston. But I just think that if Cleveland take Game 5, they'll take it home in Game 6, whereas I think if Boston win, they'll lose again in Game 6, but I just don't see Boston losing a Game 7 at home, not with that crowd. But prove me wrong, LeBron, prove me wrong. Moving on to the Western Conference, I suppose the inevitable happened. Golden State Warriors winning at home. What we didn't expect was 41-point margin.
The Dirk Nowitzki.
The only opposition Houston put up was Harden's 20 points. Chris Paul got 13 as well, but in comparison, the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry got 35 points, KD added 25, and Draymond Green had 10 points and 17 rebounds. Monster games, and that's, despite Klay Thompson really adding much on the box score. But you'd have to say this series is really in the Golden State Warriors' hands now.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. They just looked a far superior team, beating a team that many people thought would win the championship by 41 points. Really asserted their dominance. They were a far better team, and now at home, they extend their streak past the Chicago Bulls, the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls, and they've won 16 straight home games in the postseason, which is just a phenomenal record. They're just, when we talk about how good the Celtics are at home, the Oracle is just as good, if not better, for atmosphere, that they just get so loud in there. As we saw Steph Curry hyping up the crowd with some explicit language,
some profanity,
where his mother was not very happy with. But what is just a phenomenal game from Steph Curry. The first half was measly, hit kind of the same performance as he had in Game 1 and Game 2, but the third quarter he just lit up the whole stadium, putting up 8 for 8 field goal percentage, not missing a single shot, 100%, or 7 for 7, shoot with 18 points is just ridiculous number, seeing he was only averaging 17 points for the series before, to put up 18 in the third quarter. That shake and bake on James Harden, just the crowd went wild. Reggie Miller couldn't believe it, and the Rockets just couldn't keep up with the Warriors. We saw in Game 1 and Game 2 they kind of matched their pace, especially Game 2. The Rockets played faster. The Rockets just wanted to slow it down. The Warriors were getting too many possessions, which is imminent with the 126 points. It's clear to see that. The Rockets just tried to slow it down and get into their offense, which worked in the first half, but was nothing against the Warriors in the second half, when Steph Curry specifically exploded.
We got it, like you mentioned, we got one of the near perfect games from the Golden State Warriors. The only kind of aspect of the game you could say maybe they didn't do great on was Klay Thompson. He only had 13 points, 14 shots, only 3 3-pointers. He still played well, obviously. I didn't watch the game, but I'm sure he played some good defense. But, when Golden State play like that, there's nothing Houston can do. You mentioned Steph Curry was unreal in the third quarter. had over half his team's points with 18 in that specific quarter. I'm a bit shocked he only took 7 shots though. I thought when, you're playing that hot, you get at least 10 for the quarter, kind of like Klay Thompson against the Kings back in the day when he had 37 in a single quarter.
Yeah, but this was for the quarter. It was over a spell of 5 minutes in the quarter. It wasn't the full quarter.
So 7 shots in 5 minutes, you could get at least 9 up. 2 more threes, that brings us 24 points. He only took 7 shots for the quarter, is my point. But for the Rockets, this is going to be a massive dampener in their confidence. They lost by 41, considering they think that they are the better team than the Warriors. And it's not like they get to go back home and, kind of think about it. They have to stay, not in Golden State, but you know what I mean, for the next game in the Oracle, Steph Curry's house. It's going to be very tough for them. Steph Curry's going to show up again. Hopefully Klay Thompson does this time, and if that happens, you could see another 40-point blowout.
I suppose we talked about these two teams as offensive juggernauts, but we just need to appreciate that the Golden State Warriors held the Houston Rockets to 85 points. That
when the Warriors starting 5, their Hamptons 5, combined for 93 points.
It's unthinkable, but they've done it, and I think that's just one example of why the Golden State Warriors are the presumable NBA champions this year. The reason we have said numerous times on this show that they are the greatest team of all time.
Just keep telling them, keep reminding them.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of NBA fans don't like it. I think they like a bit more competition. Why can't people just appreciate the Golden State Warriors as in just give out, they're not as good because they didn't draft KD, they signed him as free agency given out.
Because the Rockets drafted James Harden, didn't they?
And Chris Paul. Oh man, I don't know.
Just one thing I'd like to point out. It was a great game and all, but I think that the biggest stat for the whole game was that from the free throw line, the Warriors as a team shot 94%.
That's light work.
That's a bit wild, seeing as the Rockets only had 76. That was just, quick stat I found coming across.
Quick stats with Alex, thank you very much. Stats. Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, but just back to that game quickly. As I said, the Rockets slowed it down and they made so many mistakes. The Warriors wanted to get out in transition, and that's so obvious as we see with 19 turnovers for the Rockets, which is just absurd, to an also equally absurd number in the Warriors, who had just 8 turnovers. The Warriors had 28 points off them 19 turnovers from Houston. So that just goes to show the difference there already. 28 points off turnovers for the Warriors to 8 for the Rockets. There's already a 20-point difference there. So you can see how the scoreline got so big. They were just too fast in transition, getting easy baskets, and just bullying that Rockets defense.
Is there any way back for Houston?
No.
Warriors go 3-1 in the Oracle, and they're not going to blow another 3-1 lead. Let's put it that way.
No, not against a Chris Paul team.
But I think Game 4 will be interesting, because I think yet again the leadership and the mentality of James Harden will be on display. If he comes out and he gives it his all, puts up 40 points, and they still lose, then we can say whatever. But if he has another game like he had in Game 6 of the 2017 playoffs, where they were eliminated to the Spurs, and he puts up 11 points, not making a field goal, or making one field goal, he just can't have a game like that. He had 20 points last night, 9 assists, shooting 44% and 33% from 3. It's decent numbers, but he's got to come out, especially in a game like that, and just take over offensively for the Rockets and try and get everyone else going.
I suppose the Houston Rockets, despite being the 1 seed, they were underdogs going into the series, but surely they should still be disappointed if the next 2 games are anywhere near what happened in Game 3.
Definitely, yeah, because
without a doubt,
it'll be tough for them to build upon this team, which is specifically crafted to defeat the Golden State Warriors without giving up some major pieces like Eric Gordon's, those kind of players. Obviously, there's talk about them going after LeBron James, but they'd have to give up some massive pieces to get there. They pretty much have no bench. So if they get beaten in 4 or in 5 with 2 more blowouts, it'd be very disappointing for them. They'll have to, the only hope they have then is the Warriors declining faster than them, but I wouldn't see that happening. Steph Curry will be good for a long time with his shooting ability, same for Durant and Thompson. It's not looking good for the Rockets if they get beaten very quickly. Like I said, this team is specifically made to beat the Warriors. It'll be a tough one.
Yeah, as Killian said, there's no real wiggle room at all. If you're going to go after your superstar, you got to get rid of half your team and just sign veterans for the rest. Even if they're looking to get some guys that can make some sort of an impact, it's going to be difficult, seeing as Clint Capella, they're without a doubt their third man, their star at centre, shooting the highest field goal percentage this season, is a restricted free agent this year, so we can pretty much assume that he's getting the max, and he's only on $2 million now still on his rookie deal. So there's been reports that Phoenix are looking at him, but without a doubt that kind of player is going to get a max deal, and the Rockets are going to have to match that if they're going to want to bring him back, which more than likely they will, because to have no one at centre could be difficult, especially with not much else to go after with your limited cap space.
So that's about it from the conference finals for now. So we'll go to the news around the association. We'll start with another Kawhi Leonard rumour. I think it feels like there's a different one every day. This one coming from the interweb somewhere. I don't know where exactly.
God, you're supposed to have your sources.
Three sources.
Three sources. Yeah, but anyway, I'll try and get some sources as we're talking about it. Actually, it's from Tom Orsman of the San Antonio Express.
Who?
Tom Orsman.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, San Antonio Express news.
The Spurs will offer Kawhi $219 million supermax contract. That is just over a fifth of $1 billion. Is that enough?
No. It should be, obviously cap limits are taken into consideration, but with players of Kawhi Leonard's calibre, you can never really pay them enough with how much they give back to your team. There's a lot of guys on the max contracts who are borderline all-stars, if that, so, you get a superstar in Kawhi. We know what he's capable of. Top 2 player in the NBA, in my opinion, when healthy. Of course, you're going to take that for $219 million, about $44 million a year, obviously fluctuating with bird rights. Of course, you take that. It's more whether on Kawhi's side, which he definitely will. That's an unreal amount of money for pretty much doing nothing this year. Of course, he's going to take it. I think if the Spurs offer it, it's going to be taken. Then he might get traded if he really wants to. That's about it.
Yeah, it's a weird one from the Spurs offering that much money. Obviously, you're going to want consensus top 3 player, even though he hasn't played this year. Was a top 2 player, definitely, in my opinion also. He was up by 20 against the 73-9 Golden State Warriors in the playoffs before Zaza Pachulia absolutely ruined him. Speaking of which, thank God he's on the bench this playoffs. Don't want anyone else dying. But with all that's gone on this year, it's hard to see that the Spurs really want him back that badly. But if you have a player that calibre, you're going to do everything you can to work it out. And for Kawhi, who's looking for more money with sponsorship deals and all that, being offered effectively $220 million over the course of 5 years is a pretty, you're looking at that thinking, yeah, I kind of want that. Even though you can make more money outside of your contract, you're not going to get near that amount of money anywhere else. You might get $30 million a year, I think it is, compared to the $40 million a year you get with the Supermax. So $10 million a year, there's a lot of money there. I don't know if you'll make that all up in endorsements or whatever at a quote-unquote bigger market.
Yeah, and that's obviously a very valid point to make. But I feel like it isn't about the money with Kawhi Leonard. I think it's about maybe building, I suppose, building a legacy. We look at maybe Tim Duncan as most people's probably greatest power forward of all time. We don't even talk about him that much, really, though. And if you look at other players, they might only be, they mightn't be near that caliber. They get talked about a lot more, and some of it is obviously, look, $220 million almost. That's so much money, but I feel like Kawhi wouldn't have, obviously providing that the rumours are true that he was just sitting out for half the season or so. I feel like this is more
He
about...
only played 8 games. Tried to make an attempt to come back halfway through the season and then sat the rest.
I think this is more about basketball, building a legacy, building his own reputation more than it is money.
Yeah, obviously he kind of wants, or his group, his uncle wants him to go down as one of the best ever because he has had the potential to do so. He's such a dominant defensive player, one of the best perimeter players we've ever seen, I think it's fair to say. And then offensively, his game has come on so much with his work ethic and all. Probably the closest thing we've seen to Michael Jordan since then, with just his incredible length, his monster hands, which are the size of Shaq's. He's such a talent and really underappreciated. I think that's why they're looking somewhere else. But we've seen with Tim Duncan, obviously he kind of hasn't got the recognition, but that is at the 4 position as well, and the 4 doesn't get much recognition in total, but people still regard Tim Duncan as a top 3 power forward whenever it's ever brought up. So I don't see that. The Spurs are such a classy organisation. He's going to be able to win there the whole time. Popovich knows exactly how to build a team around him, how to play the whole. I don't see a point in him leaving. I don't think there's a situation he can go to really that's going to be much better than the Spurs right now.
No, he'll never get to a bigger situation. It's just about market. But like you mentioned, will he really get that much more in endorsements by just, moving to a bigger market like in New York or something like that, where sure he might get more money in terms of endorsements, he would have half the contract and he wouldn't be on a good team. I don't think it's a good trade-off to make. San Antonio is pretty much the perfect place for Kawhi Leonard. Perfect realistic place, that is. I don't see why he would want to move, especially when he's getting $44 million a year. Absolutely outrageous money. I don't see it.
Obviously, when you're paying a player that much money, you run the risk of not being able to get other quality players because you can't afford them.
Yeah. Well, the Spurs have shown that they can draft very well, and rookie contracts are arguably the most valuable contracts in the NBA. Teams have been, made and broken by contracts, but rookie ones are so good. If you even look back to the 2015 Warriors, I believe Klay Thompson was still on his rookie contract, Draymond Green as well. Curry wasn't far removed from it, and that really helped them fill out the rest of the team with vets. Now we've seen they filled it out with Kevin Durant and completely paid the other guys, but that's what helped them build a foundation for what they grew to have, all those rookie contracts they had. And even the Spurs, they have some very good ones with Dejounte Murray. He's shown just 2 years into his league, he's already one of the best defensive guards in the league, and definitely has the potential to be one of, if not the best two-way player in the league. And he's on a rookie deal. He could make a leap next year, the year after, and he's only on maybe $2 million. He got drafted very late.
And alongside Kawhi Leonard, that could be a dangerous defensive pairing, and as well he'd learn so much from Kawhi. The two of them could really come up together, and as well with more draft picks, and just who doesn't want to play for the Spurs really, unless there's guys who really look at vets and whatever, guys who don't mind, they want to win, will go to San Antonio fairly cheap money, and Greg Popovich could turn them into something far better than they actually are. That's just the way things work with the Spurs. Obviously they are declining. The majority of them are going to be out of the league pretty soon, like your Manu Ginobili's, your Tony Parkers and guys like that. your Rudy Gays even. But I think the best situation, I think, is for Kawhi to just stay with the Spurs. Even though, personally, I said it before a long time ago. I think I say it again. I think he is going to leave, but I think he should stay.
Okay, next is the Dallas Mavericks. Apparently, they are looking at signing a top quality big man in the off season. Their shortlist includes DeMarcus Cousins, DeAndre Jordan, and Julius Randle. I suppose you could put it as looking for a successor for Dirk Nowitzki, Killian?
To an extent. Those guys aren't really the same breed of player as Dirk Nowitzki, but it's still kind of replacing the big man, the big tall 7-footer. Those are some very good, people to go after. DeMarcus Cousins, we don't have to talk about him. He's a superstar. DeAndre Jordan, maybe he might strive better, when he's maybe more focal point, if he can maybe develop some kind of jump shot like we see Andre Drummond doing right now. He almost went to Dallas a few years back until he got kidnapped by Blake Griffin. But and then again you look at Julius Randle. We've seen him do a lot this year. He showed a lot of potential of what he can do in Los Angeles. He has some triple doubles, some monster games. Absolutely brilliant. There's 3 very good players, and they might be looking to make a big, brilliant front court pairing with a top 5 rookie in this year. There's a lot of great big men. We'll talk about one later, but there's others like Mo Bamba, Marvin Bagley, those kind of guys. You can land one of them, pair him with a DeAndre Jordan or DeMarcus Cousins. That's a scary front court duo, as well as Dennis Smith Jr. It'll be a scary team for the future.
Yeah, I think the one they should really look at is Julius Randle, just for that matter. Add 3 young guys, whatever they drafted 5, whether it's a big or a point or a wing player. More than likely, I think it would be a big at that 5. The majority of the guys up top are bigger guys. To pair with Dennis Smith Jr. And then if you add a Julius Randle as well, try and get a few more young guys, maybe throw in some vets to help them bring along, is their best thing. But going after DeMarcus Cousins and DeAndre Jordan is like,
so is everyone else.
Breaking news, it's going to rain in Ireland this year. Of course, everyone else is going after the best guys in free agency. But for Dallas, there's really no point for them at all, except some jersey sales. You might get the 10 or 11 seed, somewhere up there, or just about miss the playoffs. With DeMarcus Cousins, obviously he's a star. But DeAndre Jordan, you nearly had him a few years back when your team was somewhat okay. But now it's gone to nothing. I do not see a point in bringing DeAndre Jordan whatsoever. He's not going to add much to your team. He's a role player. We've seen with Los Angeles, he thrives when alongside other stars. He's a bit like a Clint Capella. He needs other guys around him, and they just don't really exist in Dallas at the moment. I think the best thing, if you can't get Randle or another young restricted free agent, just sit it out and be bad for a couple of years. There's not much else to do.
Yeah, let your guys develop, but there could be something to this. If they are saying we're going to go after a big man, then maybe they might not want to pair 2 big men together. They could be looking at Michael Porter Jr. at the 5th pick. That'd be an interesting one if you could get, guard, forward, center combo, kind of 3-way thing going there. It'd be interesting, but I couldn't see DeMarcus Cousins going to Dallas. Julius Randle is a maybe. You never know where he might go. And if they sign DeAndre Jordan, just bless up for the Dallas Mavericks. They're not going anywhere for a while.
Bless up for DeAndre Jordan real quick.
Finally, before we move on to our draft preview, we'll actually talk about another member of this year's draft class, Trae Young. Apparently, there is mutual interest between himself and the New York Knicks. I'll start with you, Alex. What do you make of it? Do you think it'd be a good move for both parties?
I think so, yeah. I think with a guy like Trae Young, everyone kind of knows him already in the NBA. A lot of fans know of him. He's one of the more relatable players, you could say, in the NBA, because unlike these big 6'11", 7 foot 8-foot wingspan monsters up the top of the draft. Much like Steph Curry, a lot of guys can relate to Trae Young. They're small, they're guards. You know, he's 6 foot and half an inch, same size as myself. So he's relatable, and he is a very flashy, very pleasing to watch style of basketball. The first ever player to lead NCAA Division 1 basketball in points per game and assists per game. He accomplished that this year. So he's obviously going to be a star player, so that Knicks might think. They might think they can get the next Steph Curry. I don't see why they wouldn't take a risk with their pick. And him and Porzingis could be also a very scary duo as well. So I think it'd be a good move for the Knicks, especially where they're picking 7th, 9th, somewhere down there. If he's available, there's not a whole lot else you're gonna get. I think I like it as, you know, kind of taking the risk. He could be fantastic. He could be an absolute bust, but he could be fantastic. He has that potential. So I'd like it. And, you know, he's going to be really marketed in New York as well.
Yeah, it'll, you know, they both showed interest in each other. That is something. The question is really, will he fall to 9? I could see a lot of teams like the Cavs, maybe the Magic drafting him with their picks respectively. But we could be looking at another Steph Curry-esque situation maybe. We know Steph Curry got drafted 7th in 2009 by the Golden State Warriors. The New York Knicks were number 8 in that draft. They took Jordan Hill, but they were 100% going to draft Steph Curry with that pick. They said it themselves. And, you know, maybe that'll happen again. Maybe they don't want it to happen. They're saying, like, we nearly got Steph Curry last time. We're going to get this guy this time. I think, you know, like you said, he'd be very marketed in New York. It's a pretty perfect place for him to show what he can do. He's shown a lot of confidence when people doubt him.
Yeah, and you see, the Suns were reportedly supposed to trade for that pick. Even the Warriors didn't think Curry was going to fall that far. If there was anyone else from the first few picks, Amari Stoudemire was heading to the Warriors to join Monta Ellis, which was supposed to go through. And when the Warriors got Steph Curry, they said, maybe not.
Yeah, but
smart move. Now that we're looking back,
yeah, he's been all right.
Amari Stoudemire's pretty good.
Yeah. But another interesting thing we discussed when we had our in-depth conversation about sneakers. Trae Young is being looked at by Puma as their potential new face of basketball. Puma haven't had really a lot of big stars in the NBA since when they had Blake Griffin about 5 years ago. And if Trae Young were to be in New York or a similar market, you'd have to say that'd be a brilliant move, providing Trae Young isn't a bust.
I think the first thing the Puma can do, which would be a really good move on their part, is actually make some basketball shoes, and some good ones at that. Like, no one wears Puma shoes. Like, Big Baller Brand is, you know, Gucci compared to pennies, and the difference with shoes at the minute.
Yeah.
That's such a good comparison.
Not really.
Not
So
really.
good.
How many people
No,
outside
not
of
good.
Ireland know of pennies?
Exactly.
It's Primark out of Ireland, isn't it?
Primark,
Yeah.
or Walmart, or give me another one.
Not even close.
No, that'd be more
Walmart
like
too close.
Dunnes. Walmart would be like Dunn's.
Yeah. Pennies is a close
You gotta
shop.
help me. Come on.
I don't know American clothes shops.
TJ Maxx.
Chick-fil-A. Close enough.
Well, they're about as wearable.
Wow.
Yeah, but Trae Young to New York, it'll be a brilliant move, providing Trae Young.
Trae Young to Puma, not so good.
You never
If
know.
you're
Puma
Trae Young, yeah, thanks. You know, I'm the face of a shoe business.
But to be
that I didn't have to make myself. Lonzo Ball.
Shots fired.
well, I mean, Nike wanted Lonzo Ball, you know. So
Yeah, but then he wanted $1 billion.
But then
LeVar
Lonzo
wanted
Ball.
for three brothers.
What? How much of the league is sponsored by Nike, though?
a lot.
Exactly. Finally, on this episode, we're going to return to our draft class previews, and this time we're going to talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. Triple J. He is a power forward. Mainly, he can also play center. He was born in Indiana, played 1 season for Michigan in Division 1 basketball. He had just under 11 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, an assist, and 3 blocks per game. Brilliant defensive stats anyway. Michigan got to the regional semi-final before losing to North Carolina in the March Madness competition. He's shown he is extremely athletic, even though he's listed as power forward who can also play centre. He could probably play anywhere on the court if you wanted him to do that. But I'll start with you, Alex. Give us a bit of insight into Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, much like a lot of the guys around him, he's a freak of nature. I think in a lot of other drafts, he'd be the number 1 pick, almost consensus. He's 242 pounds. He's built like a gorilla, 6'11". That's not racist.
Okay.
He is. Look at this photo. Look at that photo.
I'm just going to go now.
A lot of guys. A lot of guys coming into the draft are real skinny, or their body isn't all there. Cannot say the same for Jaren Jackson Jr. He's just a monster already. He's shown his prowess on the defensive end, specifically with that 3 blocks a game, and just the block shots just coming from everywhere, every angle. He's pretty athletic as well, as Oisin said. He has a good explosion. His athleticism jumping isn't great. He needs time to gather. He needs to build it up. He doesn't have that kind of bounce, that spring that a lot of other guys have. But he's quick as well. For a big man, he can really move his feet. He can sprint up the court. He has so much potential on the offensive side of the ball. As a 6'11" power forward center, he's a pretty good shooter already. We've seen him shoot threes for Michigan this year. He can create his own shot. He's dribbling past guys, taking her from the 3-point line. There was one highlight there. He got it from the 3-point line, 2 dribbles, spin move, and then hammered a dunk and one. Just phenomenal play. As well as that, his post moves are pretty good. He's getting better. We've seen throughout the season he was kind of more polished. He's still working on his footwork. But that, with NBA coaches, that's going to get better in no time. And as well as that, he's one of the youngest prospects in the draft. He's only 18 years old. Only born in 1999. End of 1999. He's nearly a 2000 baby. And he's going to the draft, and he's going to be a monster, I think.
Yeah, definitely. He's an absolute crazy prospect. Would be an easy number 1 pick in a lot of other draft classes, but he's hovering around 3-4 kind of spot in this one, which is just crazy to think about how good this draft class is. You mentioned a lot of points for him. He's an absolutely freaking athlete, crazy defensive player, very good shooter for someone his size and height. I definitely think he'll play centre in the NBA. He has the height. He's 6'11". He has the build, 242. He's built like a strong person.
We could see him a bit like Porzingis though. Porzingis is 7'1", 7'2", and he plays the power forward position a lot. So it's in this new NBA, positions are kind of whatever.
Play point guard if you want it.
And this guy, he's so versatile and athletic. He can kind of play pretty much everywhere except the point.
Yeah, definitely. But centre's my pick because of his crazy rim protection. 3 blocks per game in only 22 minutes is outrageous. We don't have to explain that. You might look at his other stats and say that's a bit questionable. 11.6 rebounds per game, but he only played 22 minutes per game in college. Barely played half the game. He's going to get a lot more minutes in the NBA. Whoever drafts him, he'll be a top pick, so of course he's going to get near 30 minutes per game. It'll be crazy to see. He could definitely be, future defensive player of the year. 3 blocks per game in college is crazy. He could, 2 blocks per game in the NBA. It's still outrageous. He's my pick for. I'm going to say he's going to be a center. I'm thinking of kind of Clint Capella kind of player with a respectable jump shot. He's shot 40% from 3 in the NBA. That's absolutely crazy to think about.
In the NBA?
College.
Yeah, I think he'll adjust to the NBA quickly. many of us in Michigan State. He was fast at the ball. He made his decisions quickly. Needed what he had to do. He shows he can kind of probably more than likely deal with the fast pace of the NBA, which is much faster than the college level, of course. But there are a couple of things he does have to work on. Like any prospect, he does have his flaws. A few of them, his fouls. He 3.2 fouls per game. He's too physical. A lot of them fouls are just silly fouls, pick and roll, and he has the hands on the back, or just going up for a block and just getting all man. He needs to tone it down a bit. The 3 blocks are great, but if you have 3.2 fouls to go alongside that, it's not ideal. Another thing are his turnovers. Like we said, he is real versatile, but he tries to do too much at times, and he can just be out of control and lose the ball pretty stupidly. He can do a lot of other things, but he shouldn't try to do it all, especially at the NBA level.
Yeah, but under your big man, you're not going to be complaining if he's taking it coast to coast. But, with NBA coaches, I'm sure he'll tone down on that. They'll be a lot stricter on him, rather than, maybe in college where they're kind of just like, you're a freak of a prospect. Just do as much as you can to win us games. In the NBA, it'd definitely be different, especially if he goes to, Dallas, to a guy like Rick Carlisle. He's not going to be taking any of that. He didn't take it from Rajon Rondo a few years ago. He's not going to be taken from a rookie, Jaren Jackson. He's definitely one of the top picks in the draft. A lot of people have him over Marvin Bagley, who's an incredible prospect as well. For his, people have him for his defensive potential. I definitely think Jaren Jackson Jr. will be one hell of a player one day, both sides of the floor.
Yeah, one thing will be interesting to see where he goes, to see if there's anyone else on his team that can potentially make a duo. In the past, we saw at Michigan State he had Miles Bridges alongside him, who kind of took a lot of the burden off him offensively. You might look at it as 11 points a game and think it's whatever, but Miles Bridges did a lot of the scoring, was the main offensive guy on that team. So if Jaren Jackson goes to a team with no one else, will he be a star, or will he need to be alongside someone else? It'll be interesting to see, but I think where he's going, that kind of projected 3, 4, 5 area, whether he falls to a team that has someone or don't.
Mm-hmm.
If he goes to the Hawks, then it could be difficult on him, especially with no Schroeder. But definitely he's going to be one for the future, and at such a young age he could be on the go a long time.
Right, we're going to have to leave it there for this episode. Thank you to CRC for the studio. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe as well. Check us out on social media. We are Team Eurostep on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We're also Team Eurostep on Patreon, so if you enjoy our content, please check us out and hit us up with some dough. So that's about it until Saturday. Until next time, keep grinding.